Hello, everyone. We ended our video last week trying to see if we can see ourselves in the story of Esther. And we learned King Xerxes had left the fate of the Jews in the hands of the satanic figure Haman. Let's begin today at the end of chapter 3, where we read, quote, "Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and little children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month." This edict was to be issued as law in every province and to the people of every nationality. Wow. This may have been 485 BC, but doesn't it sound a lot like 1930s Germany? And even the words of Iran today, quote, "Death to Israel and death to America," end quote. Might that be why God wanted the book of Esther to be taught and focused on? Many people hate the Jews. Why? They are successful and a resilient people, and they are God's chosen people. Satanic hearts, like those of Hitler, the leaders of Iran, and even some Americans, want exactly what Haman wanted so long ago, the annihilation of the Jews. But that will never happen, because God said it won't. Let's examine this as we continue the story of Esther, remembering that God has a plan to always protect Israel. Mordecai learned the plan to kill all the Jews. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and there was great mourning, not only within Mordecai, but also among all the Jews, as they awaited their annihilation, which they knew would come. Esther was notified that Mordecai was troubled and sent a courier to him to find out why. Mordecai told the courier about the plan to kill all the Jews, and even mentioned the exact amount of money Haman was willing to pay the king's treasury when the job is done. Mordecai gave the courier a copy of the paperwork to show to Esther. Mordecai urged Esther to go to the king to beg for mercy and plead for her people's lives. Though Esther got the message, she was scared for her own life, because if someone like her approached the king without being summoned, he would put that person to death. Even more important was the fact the king hadn't called for Esther in 30 days, which made her even more fearful that disturbing him would lead her to her death. Finally, she herself is a Jew, but never told that truth to the king. So she was definitely scared for her life, and well, she should be. Have you ever been afraid to do the right thing for God? Have you ever remained silent because speaking up for right and for Him would have consequences? That's exactly what makes Satan successful. He can bring fear into the lives of people. I can't help but think of Pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer. In World War II Germany, he was a Lutheran pastor who saw the evil of Hitler's Nazi party. While other clergy remained silent, Pastor Bonhoeffer led a crusade to try to organize the clergy against Hitler. he managed to get 40 pastors on his side. But when push came to shove and fear took over, those pastors backed away. All but Pastor Bonhoeffer. He continued to counter Hitler until Hitler sent him to a concentration camp, where he remained trusting God and bringing pastoral comfort to those interred. 3 weeks before the liberation, Pastor Bonhoeffer was hung. Isn't it interesting that the German clergy chose fear over courage, and no one today knows even one of them by name? Pastor Bonhoeffer, however, did the right thing and died as a result, but he is remembered and honored. In fact, a movie will be in movie theaters about his life in late November. Does God then honor courage or fear? Now back to the story. Did Esther do the right thing, or did fear overtake her? A message was sent back to Mordecai that Esther feared for her life if she disturbed the king. How did Mordecai respond? First, he told Esther that if all the Jews were killed, the king would not spare her. Perhaps she thought he would. In verse 14 of chapter 4, we read, quote, "If you remain silent, deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family will perish." If not Esther, who then is it that would bring that deliverance? It is God, of course. Mordecai knew God will always protect the Jews, but he also knew God had chosen Esther to do it. Mordecai was obviously a man of great wisdom and faith. The end of verse 14 are these words from him to Esther, words none of us should ever forget. Quote, "Who knows that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this?" End quote. Let me read that again. Who knows that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this? Truth is, these words would actually apply to all of us Christians. God did plan our lives, like Esther's, to occur for such a time as this. We are alive today because there is something God planned for us to do at this time. The Holy Spirit did that for me. He took my hand and led me down the road God planned for me, beginning in 1989. He laid my work out clearly for me, and I have responded with a grateful yes to whatever he has asked me to do. It has been a joy beyond. How about you? What have you been asked to do for God? And what have you been doing? Have you lived your life answering his call? I have always loved the following words from a song sung by the late Joey Feek. Quote, "In the time that you gave me, did I do all I could do? In the time that you gave me, did I face the devil down? Did I make him turn away every time I stood my ground? If today is the day you should decide to take me, did I do all I could do in the time that you gave me?" Quote, end quote. God did take the life of Joey Feek at the young age of 40. Was all of that a premonition? When will he call you and me? At that time, will we have done all we could have done for him? That's a great question. The question for us to answer next week is this: did Esther stand her ground against satanic Haman in the face of fear, or did that fear stop her? Did she do all God asked her to do for him in the time that he gave her? Again, let me ask, how about you? Thanks for listening. It's my prayer that you are clearly seeing present-day Israel in this story, as Iran's pledge of death to Israel via Hamas and the Lebanese forces of Hezbollah replace Haman in our story. Are you Mordecai, standing faithfully and loyally with God, or are you anti-God and his beloved people by supporting the Palestinians? In chapter 4, Esther is being asked those very same questions. We await her answers and yours. See you Thursday.